Welcome back to another edition of St. Pius X Football with Greg Cranfill. I'm Joshua Cook. Of course, that's the man, the myth, the legend himself, Greg Cranfill, head coach of the St. Pius X Panthers. Coach, coming off a little bit of a tough one last week. He falls short 17-7 to the Woodlands Christian Academy, 1-2 on the 2022 season now. Just kind of walk us through that one as you had a few days to kind of digest it now.
Yeah, I tell the kids every time after the game, as a coach, you look at it, and it's never as bad as it seems, and it's never as good as it seems. And I think for us watching that video, that's exactly what we saw. We saw a bunch of kids out there that were fighting and scratching and clawing, and that's on the positive side. And then we saw some guys that we may have in positions that aren't really allowing them to be successful. So as a coaching staff, we go back and we kind of evaluate ourselves and say, did we cause this by putting that kid in that situation? And then, always put it back on us because our kids are fighting, man. I tell them they come to work every day with great attitudes and they put out tremendous effort and we'll go to war each week with them. And that's exactly what they do. The Woodlands Christian is a well-coached football team. They exploited some of the weaknesses that we felt like we had going into the game, and they found them, and we tried to manipulate and move around. But like I said, all the way to the last in the last drive in the fourth quarter, we were moving the ball down. We had already talked about our onside kick, and we were ready to go. And then two red zone turnovers in a game like that. That's evenly matched, in our opinion, was the difference in the game. They were able to finish drives, and we did not. We moved the ball up and down the field offensively, but you've got to score points because no one gives you credit for any yards. It's all about the points you put on the board. So, like I said, we felt good watching the video on things that we were doing well. We just gotta fix some things, and that's why we scheduled the way we did this year. We wanted to put some tough opponents in front of us. That way we could see what we needed to do in order to prepare for a pretty tough district schedule as well. But it's all a part of the process, and these guys believe in what we're doing. So it's another day for us, and we're going to keep moving forward.
Well, I tell you what, Coach, you sound a lot like Frank Reich, the head coach of the Indianapolis Colts from yesterday. Felt like, we were moving the ball up and down the field, just couldn't finish drives, and they have to finish drives. And so for all the people out there, even in the National Football League, the pros even have problems finishing drives as well. As I got to experience my first ever tie in a football game.
Oh, yeah. How about that, man?
Did not know how to feel about that one. But, they were just like, we didn't win and we didn't lose. So,
That's right. So, yeah, it reminded me, we played, golly, I can't even remember, Ouachita Baptist when I was a receiver at Tarleton and had over 500 yards of offense and scored 7 points. It's just because of the fact that, execution down in the red zone is always a priority for us, but that doesn't mean that it's going to always equate to points. And in critical situations, I know I sound like a broken record, but we've got to make great decisions in critical situations. That sometimes it's okay to punt, and that's even back on me. I went for it on fourth down with us being fourth and very short. And I felt like we could get it, and I was wrong. We didn't execute up front and didn't get it, and that led to one of their touchdowns. So yeah, part of that's on me, and the fact of I've got to make better decisions as a head coach as well. There is tremendous accountability that we're holding on our kids right now, and that's because I keep telling them we are looking at this through a telescope and are looking at the big picture. So when you feel like, well, Coach, I still made the play, but it wasn't done the correct way, those types of things, if they're overlooked, will end up getting you beat, down in district in the playoffs. And we're trying to emphasize that with the kids. I tell them, if Bryce takes the snap, turns around backwards and throws it over his head, but we complete that pass, is that a great play? Well, the answer is no. it worked out, but that doesn't mean it's a great play. And we're not going to say that that's a good thing. We're going to try to fix those types of things where kids don't feel like it's all about, the outcome, but more importantly, the process in order to do it over a long period of time.
I know during practices, I know everything's worked on during practices, special teams, sure, offense, defense, situational football, and stuff like that. When you come off a game where you have some struggles on third downs, converting those, one of it last week, and turnovers in the red zone and not finishing drives in the red zone, do you focus a little bit more on that, or how do you approach creating those situations?
I can show you right now. That gold section right there is third down good on good, because we've been going offense versus a scout team, but we feel like we've got to find ways, both offensively and defensively, to match the intensity of a Friday night football game. So one of the periods that we're putting in is a good on good third down. It doesn't matter what offense or what defense. It's just the competitive nature of knowing that that's the best 11 versus the best 11, and we're going to try to get after each other today. So, we feel like, at some points that we do have to evaluate how we're doing it, and is there something more that we can do? You're so worried about injuries, and we've already been in a situation where Jose Rivera, our All-State nose, has suffered an injury, and Ethan McMahon, an all-state defensive back, same thing. So you don't want to bang around in practice so much that you're losing kids, but then there's a sense in your mind that says you've got to get them ready for Friday nights. So we're going to try to turn it up one more notch. Even when you think you're working at a 10, we're going to try to dig and find another way to see if we can get a little bit better, and that's what we're doing starting today.
Looking back at last week's game, you had your Raising Cane's Caniac co-offensive players of the week. Jackson Mobley, 7 catches for 120 yards and a touchdown. Vincent Doucette, 10 catches for 98 yards. So nice night for both of those guys on the offensive side of the ball.
Yeah, and I think Bryce would tell you those are his top 2 targets. Just by the way that we've set, we've got a great group of receivers with Justice Prince and Ryan Fowlhat and KJ Dibble, just to name a few of them. But right now, as far as the execution side of it goes, those 2 guys are day in, day out, doing the work and reaping the benefits on Friday. We still feel like they've got room for improvement. And that's why they want to work, and that's why they want to stay after and get those things fixed. And that's an exciting part for us as coaches. And like I said, they'll be the first to tell you that Bryce is delivering the ball to them in situations in which is allowing them to be successful. So it's a good feeling to know that all those guys know it's not just about them, it's about this team and what we need to do in order to keep moving forward.
And then on the defensive side of the ball, the Raising Cane's Caniac co-defensive players of the week, Aiden Allen, 10 total tackles, 3 tackles for loss, 2 sacks, 2 hurries, 1 blocked field goal. And then Travis Pesic, 9 solo tackles, 8 assisted tackles, 17 total tackles for the week. I mean, I can see why he did co-defensive players for sure. I mean, Pesic had a great game at 17 tackles. And then, Aiden Allen doing what we expected him to do coming into the season as the All-Stater he is.
That's exactly correct. And like, this is Travis's second time to get it as a co-defensive player. But you're talking about Mr. Consistency. 17 tackles is pretty exceptional night. And he's doing things the right way and very proud of the work that he's putting in. And Aiden is doing probably exceeding. We already knew he was good, but he's got a different gear this year. And he's starting to show it, and that's a big thing. He's flying around the field and grading out well. Teams are smart; they're not going to run at him, and when they do, he's finding ways to get the people on the ground, and that's why he's being so successful. So proud of both of those guys as well.
Then finally, your special teams player of the week, Adrian Narvaez, short snapping in for his long snapping duties as well.
Yep, he plays center for us and maybe a little undersized, but that's a kid that he'll fight. and that's why he's able to start for us at center. But then he's also got the short snapping duties and the long snapping duties, and that's one of those things you and I often talk about what a lot of people consider the small things, but there are no small things. You let a guy snap the ball over someone's head in a punt situation, and then all of a sudden, what everybody thought was a small thing now has become a huge thing. So very proud of the work Adrian's putting in and what he's doing for this team.
Well, that's all we'll look back at last week. This week, you get Lamarck. You've got 2 more non-district games and then a bye week. So
Yes.
2 more chances to kind of, tighten things up, rev things up into getting ready to open up district play. Do you, at a certain point, and I know injuries factor into this and youth and all that stuff, but like at this point when you look at the schedule, you go, okay, we've got 2 more games, actual physical games that we have left before district, 3 weeks before district. Do you ramp it up to that next level to be like, hey guys, like we're running out of time as far as games that don't count towards us making the playoffs.
Right.
Then we need to start fixing these things when we got 2 more chances to do it.
Yeah, I think each week, I think successful programs will do exactly what you're saying, and that's what we're trying to do. Is just to increase the intensity just a little bit more each week. And to your point, you get to a situation in which you say, okay, guys, I can't make excuses for you anymore. You're either doing what you've been asked to do or you're not. And it's getting to be that time for me to have to go coach someone else. Doesn't mean that we don't like you. We love all of our kids. But I tell them all the time, I love Brady, but Brady would not start for us because he's not the best at this point, So just because I love you doesn't mean that you get to start, or doesn't mean that you get to play. We've got to put guys out on the field that are doing their jobs, and that's kind of where we're at with a couple of them. Just to say, look, you're running out of time. To show us that you are the guy for that particular position. And hopefully by doing that, those guys step up, because that's ultimately what we want to do. We want to challenge them and we want to watch them rise to the occasion. But there can't be excuses why you're doing what you're doing. It really just comes down to results. We tell those kids all the time, the video on Saturday does not have any volume. So it doesn't matter what you say. It only matters how you play. So we've got to put a great resume for each one of those guys on video every Friday, so that they can either keep their job, or we can put that job up on the selling block and see if there's somebody else that can step in and take it.
Yeah, it's definitely getting down to a little crunch time. Not super crunch time, but the heat's getting turned up a little bit. You're not just simmering the water anymore. The water's gone up to medium heat now.
That's right.
And I mean, I think that's just how that's how football is, right?
That's it.
I mean, if these guys want to go play, say they want to go play in college or NFL or anything like that. Let me look at the National Football League. If you're a kicker in week 1 and you knocked 2 kickoffs out of bounds, which cost your team, you miss a field goal in overtime, you're probably not feeling too good about your job coming in on Monday morning.
No,
because it's a result-oriented deal. College football, the same way. If you're not doing your job, there's another guy waiting to take that spot.
Yep. And in high school, it's a little different, because what we do is such relationship-based, because we're around these guys all the time. And then the NFL and even NCAA, I mean, they'll cut you that quick, They'll put your head on that chopping block and say, be gone, because it is a business, For us, that's the hard part, is the guys that you really care about, that have to be taught those lessons. And it's not just in life. I mean, you think about it in the real world when it comes to your job. It's the same thing, the old saying, you screw up once, shame on you. You keep screwing up, the second time, shame on me for letting you do it over and over and over again. And for us, that's where it's got to be. You screw up once, that's part of it. Because the thing that a lot of people forget is that there are 11 guys on the other side of the football that are trying to stop you from doing what your goal is, you know? So there's that part in it. But like you said, you know, for us as coaches, it starts with us. You know, we've got to evaluate and make some decisions on, are we in the right positions to make these determinations? Have we given these kids enough opportunities? And if we have, then we have to move on to the next guy, because that's the thing that people forget. There's always a guy right behind him that's working just as hard, and he's ready for his shot and ready for his chance. So if you're not doing your job, then you're not going to get you're not going to get that opportunity anymore. But again, ultimately, what do we want? We want to challenge these kids, and we want to watch each one of them step up, because that's the successful side of athletics. It's not to beat people down; it's to challenge them. That way, they can build back up, and that's what we hope to do. You know.
Well, it's like, I think at one point, it might have been his Hall of Fame speech, but I know Tim Duncan, when he was talking about Greg Popovich, he was talking about how Pop would break them down. And this is when he was there and Parker was there and Ginobili was there, and build them all back up into the players they wanted and needed to be. And I think that's what you're talking about right there exactly, is like, yeah, like I made the comment about college and NFL, and that's a bigger business and stuff like that. But what you're saying here is, like, with the high school kids, like, yeah, you need to learn, like, you can't just consistently not do your job and continue to have that job. And so it's a life lesson through athletics to really challenge someone to step up into that role.
Yeah, and you know, the old saying about sports building character and stuff like that. And if you ask anybody in the game, it's more that sports reveals character. And when put in those situations, you can watch how those kids react. And you talk about teachable moments. You know, if a kid drops his head when he's put in that situation, you have to look back and go, man, did I fail this kid by not showing him earlier that this was the outcome of poor play? On the other side of it, we praise louder than we will ever, correct. And that's what we try to tell our kids. You know, in video, I ask them on Saturday, do you guys hear me say more good things or more bad things? And they're like, well, good things. And then I said, okay, do you focus more on the good things, or do you focus more on the bad things? And obviously they're going to walk out. You could tell a kid 10 great things and one bad thing, and he's going to walk out with that focus on that one bad thing. And that's okay, because we want him to fix that one thing that he can, but we also want him to know that he's playing for a plethora of coaches that are here building those kids up and praising them when they do great things. That's the key to anything that we do in school and in sports, is just to try to keep putting these guys in real life situations and seeing how they respond. And hopefully the light clicks on and they react and respond the way that they need to in order to be successful. There are going to be, I told them Saturday, you're going to have bosses that will question you, and you're going to have bosses that will challenge you. And if you are the type of kid or type of young adult that when challenged or questioned, you look at that as ridicule as opposed to someone that's trying to challenge you to make you better, then you're going to be miserable for a long time in your life. And what we want them to do is evaluate situations and say, what can I do to make this situation better? We often talk about whitewater rafting and the importance of you having an oar in that whitewater raft. And I tell them all the time, you've got to be an active participant in your own survival. You can't hand your oar to other people your entire life and tell them, please row this boat and take care of me. At some point, you've got to grab the oar and you've got to row. And when it's called, you've got to do it. And that's what we want, is just guys that are saying, Coach, give it to me. Give me the opportunity and I'll show you that I can do it. And that's the fun part about coaching.
And we will leave it on that. Some wise words from the great Greg Cranfill, as everyone now is going to be using a white water raft as the example here. So,
Yeah.
St. Pius X football back on the gridiron this Friday night. They take on Lamarck on the road, and then it's 2 more road games. So, actually 3 straight road games here, Coach. So, packing your bags and the lunch pails to go to work for the next couple weeks. So, Lamarck on Friday night. St. Pius X Panthers are 1-2 on the 2022 season. Coach, appreciate your time, and of course, we'll be back here every single week with St. Pius X football with Greg Cranfill.
Go Panthers.